it took a while, but the Chicago Bulls have officially brought back Ayo Dosunmu on a 3-year, $21 million to stay with the team. This was reported by Ayo's agent and Adrian Wojnarowski earlier today. And honestly, I'm a little bit shocked at the money. I did not expect 3 years, $21 million. But in the end, I do think it's an overall good deal. In this video, we're going to be breaking down this whole deal for Ayo Dosunmu. Talk about why it took the Bulls this long and why maybe it took Ayo this long to actually agree to a contract. Then I want to get into the Bulls salary cap situation because the Ayo contract is a little bit bigger than I thought. So now this whole thing kind of changes the Bulls salary cap outlook. And then I want to end this by talking about Onuralp Bitim, as the Bulls did agree to a 2-way contract with him earlier today as well. So before we get into it all, make sure you hit that like button if you're new to the channel. Hit that subscribe button. Let's talk about this deal for Ayo Dosunmu. Now, I just want to focus solely on the deal itself that was agreed upon today. Okay, 3 years, $21 million for Ayo Dosunmu. In the end, I think it's an overall pretty solid deal. In terms of production from Ayo, in his first 2 seasons that we have seen from Ayo, okay, I think that this is actually a very, very solid deal. All right, I don't think it's an overpay whatsoever. I know some people are kind of already saying, is this a little bit of an overpay? But in my opinion, from what we've seen from Ayo in his first 2 seasons, this is not an overpay whatsoever. All right, now, when you consider restricted free agency, this is where I think there could be an argument that there is a little bit of an overpay. $7 million annually is a little bit bigger than what we were kind of all thinking, because Ayo, at least it looked like he was getting kind of hardballed, right? I was under the assumption that like the Bulls were offering him like 3 years, $10 million or $12 million in total. And for Ayo, there wasn't really necessarily a reason for him to accept that sort of deal, because he would have the qualifying offer of $5.2 million that he could just accept and be making more money annually if he just did that, right? But with that being said, it didn't really seem like there's a lot of teams that are going to be out there giving Ayo like significant amount of money. But I do have to remind people that there are still teams that have the mid-level exception available, which is $12.4 million. So there could have been a team that offered Ayo $8-9 million annually, and suddenly he's going to be accepting that offer sheet from that other team, and the Bulls have to then make a decision whether to match it or not. So maybe this was the Bulls just thinking like, okay, they think that he's actually going to get an offer, and so they went ahead and just offered him this, and then he accepted it immediately after playing hardball. Honestly, who knows? But all I'm going to say is that if Ayo was being offered something similar to this at the start of free agency, I don't know why he didn't accept it. It honestly just doesn't make much sense to me that it took this long if this was being offered early on to accept this sort of deal. But maybe this wasn't being offered initially by this Bulls team. So maybe that's the reason why it took very long. Now, that's the deal itself. Overall, I do give it like a B+, because I think Ayo is a good player to kind of bet on. I already think he's one of the better players in the one of the better NBA defenders on the perimeter, because of his really good length on the perimeter, and we've already seen him guard many guys effectively on the perimeter. And we know that on the offensive end, there's a little bit of a struggle there, especially with his jump shot, but he is one of the better finishers as a guard in the NBA. So there is already stuff to kind of build on for Ayo. Like, it's not like he's like a very, very raw talent, right? So in my opinion, because he does project to be like a really solid rotation player, and $7 million annually for a really solid rotation player is perfect. It's better than a lot of other deals out there. So I think this is really solid, especially with the salary cap going up every year. So in the end, I give this an overall B+ for the Ayo Dosunmu. So that's just talking about the deal itself for Ayo. Now, I want to go into a little bit of why maybe this kind of took a little bit longer for this whole deal for Ayo and the Bulls to actually get something agreed upon. And it has to do with Ayo's qualifying offer, because here's what I was under the assumption of that the Bulls and Ayo are kind of looking at, okay? So Ayo's qualifying offer, as you can see here by Bobby Marks, it's $5.2 million, okay? So in my head, the Bulls were offering something under that, where it was like maybe 3 years, $10-12 million, who knows, right? But here's the biggest issue. If Ayo went to just then accept the qualifying offer, if he was being like very lowball by the Bulls, then he actually would have been a restricted free agent next offseason. So then he would have to go through this exact same process again. And that plays that just makes this situation completely different, because you do not, if you're Ayo, you do not want to go through restricted free agency again, and then have to, decide whether he takes the qualifying offer or not. But then he won't be getting any other offers necessarily from other teams, most likely, because of this whole situation. So this is probably why it took so long for the Bulls and Ayo to actually come to an agreement on this. In my head, I thought Ayo was just going to take the qualifying offer and then become an unrestricted free agent next season. But if he actually did that, he would have still been a restricted free agent, because if you have 3 years or less of service time or years playing, if you are then a free agent, you're then, no matter what, a restricted free agent. I did not know this. I was then told this by Ryan Borgia, Bulls GM, on Twitter like about a week ago. Bobby Marks tweeted this out today, kind of broke it down a little bit better. So in the end, this is the reason why this happened for Ayo, and why it probably took so long for Ayo and the Bulls to come to some sort of agreement. For Ayo, I think this is a humongous win, because I do think that maybe the Bulls were probably lowballing him initially. And then obviously, again, he would then have been a restricted free agent next offseason, which would have absolutely sucked for him. So he is going to obviously avoid that now with this deal, and make a pretty good chunk of change along with that. So good thing for Ayo Dosunmu just to get this done, and props to his agent for getting it done as well. So Ayo is not going to have to worry about that anymore. In the end, I do think that this deal, again, is a really solid deal. I had this as my projection. I wrote this for Substack earlier, before free agency started. I thought it was going to be a 3-year, $24 million deal, and then ends up being a 3-year, $21 million deal. So in the end, I do think this is a really solid deal for the Bulls. So nothing really too much to worry about. All right, now, though, we need to talk about this Bulls whole salary cap situation, because the Ayo deal was a little bit bigger than all of us were kind of projecting, right? Because I think a lot of us, including myself, were thinking that the most that Ayo is going to be getting this year is $5.2 million with his qualifying offer. That obviously, didn't come true today. So he's going to get paid $6.4 million according to Spot Track. And Doug Thomas decided to tweet out his spreadsheet that he uses to kind of look into what the Bulls salary cap situation is. So I made a copy of that myself, and I decided to change a little bit of things that Doug had on here, because I went in and just copied all the Spot Track's numbers into here. Doug Thomas also had Julian Phillips making only $1.112 million, which it's been kind of noted already that I don't think that's correct, because Spot Track here has him making 1.6. Bobby Marks also tweeted out he's making 1.6. So I'm going to assume that he's making 1.6. So that itself is going to change a lot of things here too. But if this is the case, right? If all these numbers that we have in here are correct. Now, one more thing to know. Torrey Craig's minimum deal here, I think this is wrong by Spot Track. We'll get into this in a second here. But like his Torrey Craig's cap hit should only be about $2 million. And I'll explain that in a second here. But if we're going off of all these numbers being correct from Spot Track, and obviously also from Doug here, the Bulls pretty much, they have like no money to spend. And this is, Ayo's deal being a little bit bigger than expected kind of plays into it. Right here, I plugged in here the rookie minimum contract. So minimum contracts for a rookie here is $1.1119 million. Okay, so I just went ahead and plugged this number in. And with this number being plugged in, you can see here that this actually puts the Bulls over the tax, right? Right here is what we're looking at. This puts the Bulls about $150K over the tax. And at least for what we have looked into, it seems like the Bulls are trying to avoid the tax. So I'm going to guess that this is probably not what they want to do here. And they're probably going to either just stay with 14 guys. They might waive Carlik Jones and go ahead and sign a forward. But, like, if this is, again, if the numbers here are correct, it seems like this is pretty much the team. And we're not going to see any other move made unless they're willing to go into the tax here. Now, minimum contracts are important to talk about because I just mentioned Torrey Craig, right? When it comes to minimum contracts, this is always a little bit different. And you can see here, if you do not know, when it comes to minimum contracts, there is a base salary that the player is given based off of years of experience, but the cap hit for that player's salary is actually typically lower than what the player is actually going to be getting paid. If you do not know, a cap hit for a player that is a 2-year vet or has more years of experience than 2 years, it is always going to be the minimum contract of 2 years. Okay, so what I'm trying to say here is that for Torrey Craig, he is making a minimum contract. If you look at his from Spot Track, he's going to be making $2.5 million. So that suggests that he has about 6 years of experience in the NBA. But his cap hit actually is only going to be $2 million. And if you're wondering about, like, is this just for the Bulls or this is around the NBA? Like, go ahead and look at Patrick Beverley's contract with the 76ers. He even says it here from Hoops Rumors that Patrick Beverley's going to be making $3.1 million in terms of total salary, but his cap hit is only going to be $2 million. So this is the reason why we have Torrey Craig's contract as this right here. But even with that, it puts the Bulls over the tax if they go ahead and even sign someone to a minimum rookie deal. So, for example, if the Bulls went ahead and signed Javon Freeman Liberty to this rookie minimum contract, it would still put the Bulls in the tax. The one thing that to think about is that the Bulls could do this to start the season, and then later on in the year trade someone away just to kind of get under the tax before the deadline, and then that would officially, make sure that they're below the tax before it actually counts. So maybe that's what the Bulls do, is they just go ahead and re-sign Javon Freeman Liberty. The other thing that could happen here is I do think that Carlik Jones could get just waived here. His contract is non-guaranteed, by the way. This is assuming these numbers are assuming that his contract is guaranteed. But if they went ahead and just got rid of his contract here, you see here that there is about $1.17 million below the tax, and I'll get rid of the rookie deal here as well. Then this actually brings the Bulls about $2.8 million, so they can go ahead and basically sign someone to a minimum deal, because this is what a minimum contract is going to count as, right? So maybe they go ahead and do that. I know the Bulls have been rumored to be in talks about with Rudy Gay, and maybe some other guys. By the way, I don't really think the Bulls are going to get Christian Wood, but maybe that's what they do. But I'm not entirely sure what the Bulls are going to be doing right now, because let's just, I'll just bring back Carlik Jones's his deal, right? And I don't even have like a rookie minimum deal on here. The Bulls don't have enough money to even sign anybody to a rookie minimum contract without going into the tax. So I don't really know what they're thinking right now, but this is what we're looking at. Again, the vet minimum here, this is what's going to count against the cap if they sign a minimum contract to anybody with a minimum contract. So this is kind of what we're looking at with this Bulls team. I don't know exactly how they fill out the rest of the roster, or if they're just going to run with 14. But yeah, this is kind of what we're looking at. Now, Doug Thonas kind of mentions here that maybe the Bulls could sign JFL and wait and dodge the tax. But again, I mentioned that he had Julian Phillips's contract numbers here lower than 1.6. So we're going to officially find out all the numbers eventually, and it'll kind of give us a little bit more perspective here. But at least from right now, in my head and from what my calculations are, the Bulls don't have enough money to get 15 guys in the roster and be below the tax unless someone is moved here. So that's at least my understanding of it all. I could be wrong here, but at least from my calculations, this is what we're looking at for this Bulls team, is that these are the 14 guys, and I don't see a way to get a 15th player without going into the tax. So that's the Bulls salary cap situation after the Ayo Dosunmu contract, which again was a little bit bigger than we all kind of expected here. So that's that. Moving on to the other news of the day, which is Onuralp Bitim. Onuralp Bitim has agreed to a two-way contract with the Bulls team. I did not actually expect this to happen, because there was actually video of Bitim working out with the Houston Rockets Summer League team, and that's when I thought, okay, Bitim is gone. There was initial reports of the Bulls and Bitim agreeing to some sort of deal, and then suddenly those reports were deemed to be false, and there wasn't a deal actually agreed upon. And then we saw the video of him working off the Houston Rockets Summer League team, and that's when I thought, like, okay, we lost Bitim. Well, he's back now with this Bulls team. I would have liked to have seen him with the Bulls for Summer League, but I don't know exactly what happened with the contract negotiations, or if they just decided not to bring him on for the Summer League squad. But in the end, I do like this deal for this Bulls squad. Bitim is mostly known as being like a shooter, and you can never have enough shooting in the NBA, especially for this Bulls team, which sucks at shooting. So hopefully this works out for this Bulls squad. That means now Adama Sanago, Justin Lewis, and Onuralp Bitim are the 3 two-way contracts for this Bulls squad. You're allowed to have 3 this year with the new CBA intact now. So this is totally normal for this Bulls squad, and I'm actually happy with how AK went out and used his two-way contracts this time. No disrespect to like Malcolm Hill and like Terry Taylor and those guys, but I wasn't really high on those guys. I like this sort of use of the two-way kind of guys that we know are going to be really working to develop their game in the G League. And I don't really expect to see Sanago, Lewis, or Bitim at all on the regular roster, but this is kind of what I like to see them teams do, is use these two-way contracts to go ahead and develop these guys. So that's what we're looking at right now for the two-way contracts. And again, I do like this. I do like Bitim, and I hope that it kind of works out for this Bulls squad. Again, keep low expectations. He's signed a two-way contract for a reason, right? Here's my rotation now after Ayo is brought back. And just kind of overall look at the roster. I do not have the two-way contracts in, and I also don't think Carlik Jones is going to stay on this team. Maybe they waive Carlik Jones and bring in a guy like Rudy Gay, and then that's the 14 guys they have on their roster. In the end here, I do think that AC is not going to be necessarily playing the guard positions. I think it's going to be playing backup small forward. I do think Kobe, AC, and Craig are going to get most of the backup minutes, but I do think Ayo still has a rotation spot. I don't think Dalen Terry or Julian Phillips are going to get any playing time, unfortunately. And then obviously the center position is just these guys. So this is what I have for this Bulls squad right now. I do think that bringing back Ayo was the correct decision. Whether you think the Bulls should be, going the win now direction, rebuilding, retooling, I don't even care. It's still a guy to bring back, and I think the contract overall is pretty solid, especially if he develops and goes in the right direction. Year 3 is typically when maybe some of the young guys actually kind of take a little bit of a step forward. So I hope that happens with Ayo for year 3, and he's definitely gonna be fighting though for rotation minutes, because this again is another guard heavy rotation. So I don't really know how the Billy Donovan's gonna do everything, but we all know that someone's gonna get hurt eventually. So I do think that because we know Ayo is typically healthy, he's gonna get playing time on this Bulls squad no matter what, because someone is bound to get hurt, and we know Ayo is typically healthy. So that's that. But that's all I have for you guys in this video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, make sure to hit that like button. If you're new to the channel, hit that subscribe button. I'll see y'all in the next one.